Wait, no, that's another show. We can't do that. I don't know what show that was, but I tried to just make one up, and instead I remembered
It just sounds a bit old-timey. like it's that kind of thing.
I remember now. That was the theme to, are you ready for this? Dogs with Jobs. A sad, sad Netflix hole that I fell down one night.
I have never seen that.
What was the most interesting job that a dog had?
You know, there were the jobs you would expect, bomb sniffing and person sniffing and sniffing in general, sniff-related
sniffing
occupations.
Seeing eye dog, I'm sure.
Yeah. But, yeah.
I mean, no
It was
dog
cute.
like chiropractors or anything.
No, very few, in fact.
But there were
Sheep
some, very few, but
the occasional.
Well, I guess that segues perfectly into welcome to the Lab Podcast, episode 2. I guess we're calling this podcast Taking Apart Music. How are you guys doing today?
Excellent.
doing pretty well.
Yeah.
Of course, sitting here with my good friends and production partners, Leo James and Courtney Kakabin, in the lab, of course, as you can see. And it's been a busy week. We've had multiple, not just recording sessions with all four of us, us three, including our drummer and friend Dylan. Recording sessions. We've had video sessions, commercial, lots of video, lots of things going on this week. What's been exciting this week to you guys in the lab or otherwise?
Been mixing a lot. Got some teaching going on again. So that's always fun. Have a few students and a few mixing clients. So everything from sax quartet, a little bit of oboe thrown in, flutes and clarinets for our upcoming album. You guys have probably heard of it, but maybe you haven't. The single's going to be Want You. Check it out with Callista. Yeah, that's really exciting. Just hearing that come together, mixing and teaching and mixing.
I'm pretty excited about the mixes I just heard yesterday, actually, of work that we've done on, what was it, Sunday?
Mm-hmm. We were jamming.
Yeah, exactly, some jams. But I just feel like we're getting more cohesive and tight as a group. Starting to sound good.
Yeah, that's really great. I mean, it is pretty cool these days. The jams we're referring to, essentially, we show up and just set up microphones on all of our instruments and just get ready to capture some spontaneous compositions, as we like to call them, and that's basically just us having fun, us conversing through our instruments, and usually it looks like one of us coming up with a riff or a chord progression or a bass line, and everyone else just being inspired to come up with a part that their instrument would play to accompany that, and lo and behold, like a whole new song or groove comes right out. And just playing a couple of those, we record them later mix them down. One of them we just put up on the channel was called The Stinger. You can see that session. We'll be putting up more videos completed with the mixed audio from those sessions pretty soon. And those jams are fun, and they're evidence of not just our playing ability, but that playing comes from we've been playing together a lot. We've been practicing together a lot. Practicing that playing. And that's, I think it shows.
Love it. Yeah, that next that video that people are going to want to click on the video. It's over here. Ooh. I believe it's called The Stinger.
Mm-hmm.
I loved that one section where everyone just decided to do the same punches.
That worked out really well.
If you want to go back and listen to it over and over, you can hear that the very first one isn't as, much of an obvious everyone's going to do it thing. But enough people do it that everyone notices and goes, oh, yeah, dude, I'm going to do that now. And the whole band starts to do this it seems planned. It seems planned, and it seems discussed, and in a way we are discussing it with the instruments, just real time. There's no pre-planning on stuff like that. It just goes. So good times. Yes. So that's a good intro. Tell us what the episode is all about today. What's the name of the game, brother?
Well, setting it up to talk about practice is the topic for this episode. That jam it was something that we created right there in the moment, but that moment was made possible by years of practice that each of us have put in individually on our instruments, and also practicing playing together, because just like sports teams, you can have a lot of great players in the same room, but it doesn't mean that they're going to gel as a unit, or they're going to have a dialogue that's developed. So any group that plays together needs time and
group practice.
Yes,
exactly, and that's some of the most fun to do these days. I guess to get one of the things we wanted to talk about on practice is, I guess, our own personal approaches. How we practice. What to what extent, and for me, I know I have a complicated relationship with practice that's evolved over the years. Yeah. It started as simple as, first of all, I don't like practice. And so it's always become, what's motivated me to practice. And quite simply, the motivation has become, I want to play with better people. You have to get better to play with those people, to play music, if I wanted to play the music that excited me, I had to, develop the technical ability. I mean, that's why a lot of people practiced. But what changed over the years was, what I focused on. First, of course, you have to, consume, all the basics of scales and chords and just general vocabulary, and having, a good song catalog and this and that. But later, I had whole periods where I would focus on just time or just feel. And it was cool to focus on one thing and see how it impacted all the other things in my playing. And this happened a lot in college, where music college, where I'm studying guitar, so all of my classes are music related, and so I'm doing a lot of different things. But when I practice, I'm thinking about one thing. I'm kind of having a theme to my practice, and a big I guess changes when I started thinking about time and groove and feel, and it's all kind of the same thing, but there's nuances, and I guess I still think about that a lot. But
it's interesting that you mentioned time and groove, because that's something I've found isn't usually to a new player an obvious thing to practice right off the bat.
Right. Yeah.
People like to think of scales. That's probably the most traditional. Everybody does this practice technique where you just play up and down scales. And then there's focusing on harmony and stuff like that, pitches. But then we get to timing and groove, and that's such a huge part of music.
Yeah.
Probably an under-practiced aspect.
It's one of the reasons that when we teach, especially children, we're always teaching a rhythm instrument that has nothing to do with pitch, right along in there, or we're having them clap, before we are going to have people sight read every aspect of a piece of music. We're probably going to talk it through together and like, okay, guys, it's da 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 da, and just
once you have that, the rest is so much easier.
Yeah, it's very good to break it down, to focus, to isolate out one aspect of the music. And really just do that. The converse of a rhythm, I think in a lot of wind instruments, probably not so much on guitar and bass, but on a lot of wind instruments, including vocals, we would just do long tones.
Yeah.
And the goal would be just get that single note to be better, low volumes, loud volumes, but just one note, for an entire breath, and then pick a different note for an entire breath, or do the same one over and over and over, depending on how much of a masochist you are.
They actually have that for strings too. You're supposed to play open strings and just let it ring, so that you get the best attack and learn. That's for upright bass in particular. I've been doing that.
Yeah. I mean, putting anything under the microscope, you're gonna learn something. I guess just to finish the little bit on time. Another way that helped me, I guess, phased into focusing on time was an exercise. In trying to get better at one thing, you look for other solutions, and a lot of those solutions are just different exercises. This one in particular was when I was trying to get better at sight reading on guitar, sight reading melodies, chords, anything that was, put in front of me. And one of the ways that really helped me gain a lot of ground in sight reading was separating time from pitches and from all the other things. And the exercise, I encourage anyone to do this at home if you're trying to get better at reading, but you could apply it to other things as well. And that was that I would start my reading practice by sight reading only rhythms. I had a book, an encyclopedia of drum rhythms, which was standard issue at Musicians Institute where I went to school. And just opening the book to a random page and turn the metronome on and sight read it as fast as I could, and I would do that for the first whole half hour of reading practice, and then I would go and sight read melodies, and suddenly it was like running with and without a backpack. Suddenly my brain didn't have the weight of thinking about rhythms. They were more fluid, and that pushed my sight reading as a whole further, just focusing on that time. And again, in that focus, bled out into whole other things, which time became a fascination just from starting at that one exercise, just by isolating it. What are some other things that you guys have, put under the microscope in your playing that have led to big improvements or just overall improvement elsewhere?
Oh, man. I like to think that everything's come under the microscope at one time or another, but on that entire subject as a whole, some of my, it depends on the instrument. One of my favorite things for guitar and keyboard type instruments to do is something I would do almost every day that I pick it up. I'm going to go through, simple modes, playing chords in thirds. So just moving through the chords, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1 again, because in music we don't like eights, I guess. And, essentially if I'm in, for example, the people's key of C major, playing a C major 7 and then an E minor 7, trying to think of that second one as being part of the first. And then doing the same with D minor. And rather than in my brain, I can easily accomplish this exercise by going 1, 3, 2, 4. But the only exercise that I'm performing is playing 1 and then 3 and just saying 1 both times, in my mind. Like, this is a C major 7 and this is a C major 7.
Trying to make that connection deeper.
Yeah, make that connection in my brain. Just like my hands are telling me I'm doing an E minor 7, but my brain is saying, no, these are just the upper notes of a C major 7 with 9, And it's making that leap. So voicings has been a big microscope thing for me lately on those instruments. But I feel like with singing, it's almost always about just tone and support. Yeah. Like, people don't really learn to sing a lot of range until they just sing the right tone, and then the range comes. So those who sit and focus on range and try to bring that under the microscope generally just fail or end up with a weird sounding range more often.
Right.
Yeah.
So I still am just trying to like the sound of it, and just enjoy the tone. So. Yeah, the microscope singing wise is generally tone, and I always try to keep up some percussion, some amount of just rhythms. I think is so good for you. It was one of my first instruments, piano and then drums immediately. That for me is a kind of a woodshed of its own, is to just pick up any percussion instrument and just think about rhythms for a while.
To answer the question you were talking about. I've been trying to work on feels in particular. So,
what could you define feels for our listeners?
For me personally, feels means a myriad of things. The beat, the timing of that beat. So, for instance, there's a huge difference between a rock groove or beat and salsa, which will have a different rhythmic emphasis. And especially as a bass player, that's pretty much the number one thing I'm responsible for. So
that's what we pay for.
That's right.
Speaking of bass players, I don't know if you can hear, we are in a rehearsal studio, and there is somebody who is pushing the limits of their amp nearby.
Yes, sir. That is bright.
It's pants shaking loud in here.
Sorry, continue.
Oh no, yeah. Mostly feel, and by way of transcribing. So I take my and not writing it out.
Ultimate practice is
Well, I'll probably use that term a lot when we talk about practice. And for me, transcribing is just pulling it off the record with my ear and memorizing it, getting that feel under the fingers.
So I'm going to work on. I love language and roots. Scribe would be the only part of that that's wrong. So I'm gonna I'm gonna come up with a word for transmify.
Transmute.
But to learn completely is your meaning here. Yes.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Okay,
well, I pull from my favorite players, my influences, and and I take the parts I like and incorporate it into my own.
It's fancy legal stealing.
Yes, it's true. That's the way we've all done it.
It has to be done.
There are a lot of parallels to acting in playing and transcribing, especially in this way, is one of them, because in order to play a part, with the right feel, working on feels, especially as a bass player, that's crucial. So in order to play a part with the right feel, you have to know what it feels like to play that part. And, the best way you get that is by transcribing and trying to have it completely, trying to have the full picture of that. And, I mean, every music teacher ever seems to, put out, transcribing, trying to pull things out and own them by, just through your ears, one of the most powerful ways to practice and spend your time.
Absolutely.
Study the greats.
Yeah.
Study exactly every single note, and as best you can how they played it and everything about it. For me, everyone's picked a song and gone big and tried to really make sense of it. And for me, one of them was Tommy Emmanuel's Initiation. Plays it a little differently every time, so I had to pick one in particular and just listen to that one. And so first I listened to as many different ones as I could, and then listened to the same one well over 300 times. And at the end of the day, one thing I just wanted to ask myself is, how many different ways does this guy make sound come out of a guitar? And if you want to really get specific, you can pluck a string, you can twang a string, you can
slide.
There's a few different ways
off.
you can make a sound on a string, a few different places you can hit it on the body of the guitar. And long story short, it's you kind of want to just quit counting at some point in this 8-minute piece of music. It's if you can think of a way to whack a guitar, this man did it with musicianship in a single piece, using nothing more than a reverb and a delay pedal, and he pulls off quite a lot. It's pretty cool. That was a great practice sabbatical, even though I never played the music. I never attempted, and I would be foolish.
You never performed it?
I never attempted to play that music. I was practicing, but not by playing music, just a transcription, as you would say, where I'm just really studying how is he doing the notes that he's doing, and why is he doing them that way.
I think it's a little bit unfair to use transcription, because that implies playing it or writing it down. It sounds more like a meditation, but not to get too into the words. It is
again, that's the wrong word. We're gonna have to come up with something that means what you're saying.
It's a practice in and of itself to listen to something that intensely, to try and understand it better. I guess another thing I wanted to talk about is I feel like we can't talk about practice without talking about the practice, practicing how you practice, that. I think as musicians we practice all the time, and I know myself and when our old drummer, a good friend Mike English, him and I talked a lot about the way that we practice all the time, because you continually get better at it. Even Tommy Emmanuel has said in a clinic I attended that he still practices all the time, and he's so excited because he's still getting better. That speaks to it's an endless frontier, but it's also been tough to improve the way that you practice, again, for someone like me who doesn't like to do it. So I'm always looking for how to get the most out of the time that I put in, and that's been really interesting.
That's true. I kind of like to practice, and I feel the same way, though. I want to get the most out of that time. There's no need to dilly-dally, so to speak.
It can be dangerous too if you practice in any inferior way. Perhaps you're going to permanently handicap yourself with some habit.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure that you guys have both had habits. I definitely have that I had to unlearn.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Takes forever.
And unlearning is definitely harder than learning a habit.
Definitely.
That's for sure.
If there's one thing I could stress with practice for me is slowing everything down.
Word.
That's the universal technique I use. Just nail it in that slower tempo, and then bring it back up, and it feels better. Yeah,
it's confusing. It's ultimately about speeding it up, but I find as I get older and as I play longer, slowing down is where I get faster. Yeah. It's in playing slow that I obtain speed and playing relaxed. And but yeah, the number one preach for me, is be musical. We play a lot of scales. They're very boring. I change them, and I make a resolution out of every single one. I don't ever play anything that sounds boring. I'm against it, and it can make people think I'm against scales, but I just want to put a nice number of beats in them. You know, I just want to put a nice number of notes in them and make sure that every single one can be played with some kind of volume swell if you want to, and just continue to enjoy the sound of playing and try to find joy in it. And I practice a lot to music. That's a
It
big
means
one.
that you're not just practicing, but you're continually practicing being musical in everything that you do.
That's number one for me.
Yeah, I guess.
Well,
Man.
you play how you practice. So if you're not practicing musically, you're not going to play musically. I wouldn't think so, at least.
Very true.
So it looks like we're just about done. I just wanted to ask you guys one final question. How much do you say you practice a week? If you could put it in hours or minutes or whatever.
Oh man, my answer would push us over time anyway. The short answer is that I feel like I practice guitar very little compared to how I used to, but I would say that I practice a lot, if not more than ever, because I'm practicing lots of different things, including making podcasts and producing videos and doing recording sessions. So I practice a lot of different things. It's a difficult question to answer.
Yeah,
Of course.
I would say that I'm doing music roughly 40 hours to 50 hours a week, but I'm only playing any one specific instrument generally not more than about an hour in a row in a day, sometimes 2 hours, but I find there is diminishing return if you are focused on too few tasks for too long in anything. 3 hours starts to really become a limit. You need to switch it up, focus on something else.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I guess one final thought, going back to practicing and slowing things down. I struggled with that not too long ago and came across a phrase that I helped that helped me slow down, and that was at one point I realized that even though I've been playing guitar all these years, I feel quite accomplished in my ability, and I was getting frustrated learning something, and I realized that I had to be humble enough to slow it down. Like slower than my ego wanted me to play it. My ego is telling me I should be able to play it this fast. I should be able to read it this quickly. I've done all those hours of practicing reading my rhythms, but even still, there are things that you have to. You just have to slow it down, even if it hurts you a little bit, because the reward is so much greater. Again, you slow it down, you get faster. It's like, well, I think that's a very, very appropriate place to end it. Thank you guys again so much for joining me here in the lab. Thank you for joining us at home. Leave us a comment. Tell us how you practice, whether you like it or not, how you get through it, different ways, methods, techniques. We want to hear it all. If you have other questions or want to give us questions for the podcast or topics, leave them in the comments below. You can also reach out to us at theguysatthelab@gmail.com. One more time, my name is Christian Sorensen.
I'm Courtney Kakabin.
I'm Leo James, and this has been Taking Apart Music.
Thank you.